A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to our Beyond Sport Workshop Week wine tasting. I'm Dan Nicol, host of Dan Really Likes Wine, which for those of you who don't watch it, and you really should, is a wine show based in South Africa. And it allows me to spend a lot of time drinking and celebrating wine from around the world, but especially South African wine. And it also allows me today to be part of the Beyond Sport Workshop Week. I was part of one of the sessions just a little earlier on this evening with Michael Johnson and Lance Walker. And I'm now going to be joined by Michael in just a moment, and appropriately so, because when the global head of wine and fine dining at Beyond Sport, Lex Schalk, who's a dear friend to so many of us, suggested we do this, I said, well, the best person to have on this would be Michael Johnson, because I remembered from a few years ago in Monaco, the Laureus World Sports Awards. Michael's an Academy member. I'm a Laureus ambassador. We had a very, very long conversation about our shared love of red wine. And so Michael is part of a session that also includes one of the Olympic greats from Great Britain, Kate Richardson-Walsh, gold medal winner in field hockey and one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. We're also joined by Schalk Brits, who was part of the Rugby World Cup winning Springbok team from Japan last year, and Faf du Plessis, who's not just known as a South African cricket captain, but also as the owner of his own wine brand and a very, very passionate wine man. So if I can ask everybody to come and join me, and we'll get some glasses poured. And I hope wherever you are in the Beyond Sport world, you are doing the same and pouring yourself a glass. I can see there is the smiling red wine drinking face of Mr. Johnson, Schalk Brits, who's got glass in hand, Faf du Plessis as well. And I think Kate will be joining us in just a moment. There we go. Welcome to all of you guys. Lovely to have you here, not just as part of the Beyond Sport Workshop Week, but as part of the most important session of the entire workshop week, which is drinking wine together and sharing some stories and some memories. And Michael, I know that this is a space you'll particularly enjoy. And as I ask you the first question, I'll ask everyone to pour themselves a glass of the Seriously Old Dirt from Villafonte, which is a California Cape collaboration between Mike Ratcliffe and his team here in South Africa and some great Californian winemakers. Michael, we know you as this devastatingly quick runner and one of the all-time great athletes, but you're also a man who's got not just a great fondness, but a fair amount of knowledge for red wine.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weakness, maybe I would call it. But I've always enjoyed it. I actually moved to California back after I retired, and moved to San Francisco. I live in Malibu now, but I lived in San Francisco for almost 20 years, and literally 20 minutes from Napa. And so I spent many weekends up in the Napa, up in the wine country, tasting and probably buying way too much wine. But I'm absolutely not a collector. I'm a drinker. So I was able to successfully drink everything that I bought, and I continue to buy and continue to drink.
Well, I've chosen our first wine today specifically in your honor, Mr. Johnson, because this, as I said, it's a collaboration between a South African label and a label in California. And together the winemakers have built this label called Villafonte. The Seriously Old Dirt refers to the soil, the terroir from which this wine comes. And it's the second label of Villafonte. We'll taste their top label right at the end. But it's still slightly young, but a beautiful example, I think, of a South African red blend. It's rich. It's got lots of lovely dark fruit. And it's particularly in winter, which we find ourselves here in South Africa. It's a brutally cold night in Johannesburg. It's a lovely wine to be washing away the evening with. And it's a wine which I think Michael, Kate and Faf will all enjoy. But I think Schalk might not have a clue what he's drinking at the moment, because he's absolutely starstruck. Because Schalk, if I'm not mistaken, tell me what the name was of the very first sports biography you ever read was.
Oh, Slaying the Dragon, actually. I'm quite starstruck here with Michael sitting here. I mean, this is actually the second time I've seen Michael. First time was him running. And the second time was when he had a chat with our team at Saracens, and I couldn't get a word out. And now eventually, my hero is sitting in front of me. So I'm so stoked.
I'm just pleased that you read Slaying the Dragon. I was told that somebody bought a copy, and now I know who it is. It was you.
Oh dear. Schalk, some South African wine here. It's made in South Africa. There's Californian influence, but it's a lovely South African red wine. How much of a role did a glass of wine play in the big rugby celebration, say after winning a Rugby World Cup, for instance, last year, as you did so famously? Oh, I think Schalk's
unfortunately there wasn't enough wine being drunk that night. So there was a lot of champagne and a lot of beer, to be honest. But it is always, I mean, if you've got Schalk Burger close by, normally there's always a lot of wine to go by. But at the World Cup final, there a lot of beer, a lot of celebration, and a lot of fun.
and rightly so. And it's an important part of playing sport is celebrating, and we've got a lot of sport to celebrate this week because sport is playing such a big role in helping our communities get through some difficult times. And we've got some great wine here this evening. That's one of them. The second wine I'd like to try. Unfortunately, Kate, this is not one that you will have, but I'll ask Schalk to talk us through it because Schalk, you now form part of this greater world. This is the Cape of Good Hope wine, which forms part of the Rupert team, and I'm always slightly worried when I'm drinking wine with hockey people because I generally find it's not the rugby players, it's the hockey players who are the real hooligans when it comes to a big night out. Kate, is drinking wine part of something you used to enjoy doing when you had one of your many great victories?
I think hooligans a bit harsh. No, definitely, we definitely did go with the beer and the champers. I'll agree with Schalk on that. I think I like wine now. I retired after Rio, and so we've kind of had a 4-year plan of drinking lots of wine. And that's gone down really well. But we do like to party hard. Hockey players are well renowned for playing hard and partying hard. I'm not sure we're beating the rugby contingent, to be fair, but we're pretty good.
It's also something that tends to bring people together, bring teams together. Michael and I on an earlier session were talking about the importance of teammate, and it always struck me whenever I watched your team play. Yes, you were enormously talented as individuals, but you always seemed to be such a united team. There was such a driving force of doing it not so much for yourself, but for the players around you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were coming up against the likes of the Argentinians and the Dutch, the Germans, and I think we knew in order to beat them, we needed to be greater than this. We needed to be a team. That's the only way we were going to compete with and beat those teams was to really be a team. And I think it's true in any organization, any group. You need all of those different strengths, everybody to bring their strength to the table in order for that team to thrive. And I think what you saw right in Rio was the 16 young women representing, the squad of 31, and it was about that whole squad. I wouldn't have that gold medal in my sock drawer if it wasn't for that whole group of 31 and all of our staff, of course, that supported us so well. And that was our way of going out and competing and beating eventually that number one team in the world, the Dutch, who were just phenomenal.
It was an incredible performance. I think one of the best of all of 2016 when you look back on it. Glad to hear that's where you keep your medal. Michael Johnson, do your gold medals live in a sock drawer at home?
No, they're not in a sock drawer. Yeah, I'm a little bit more. Maybe I'm a little bit more protective than Kate. It's just, Kate just threw that thing in the sock drawer. For me, I'm kind of like, I might want to hold on to these. If anybody comes into my house, or maybe that may be what they take. So I put them in a slightly more protective place.
What's right at the back?
That's why they're in the sock drawer.
So these two are Royal Television Society awards. I won as the Pundit of the Year a couple of times. This is very interesting. This one is a piece of the foundation from the Los Angeles Olympic Stadium, from the original Los Angeles Olympic Stadium. We're in 1923 when it was built for the 24 Olympics. And as you know, we're going to be hosting again in 2028. So that's a piece of the original foundation.
And that was, of course, your very first Olympics, Michael, which we remember very, very fondly indeed.
Yeah.
I just keep this. I just keep this just like kind of down here, like down just like just hanging out. I was just hanging out on the floor,
Just when you're on a random wine tasting with mates, I'll just pull it out and give it a go. Michael, I'll ask you to pour some of the Chardonnay. This is a wine of your friend Johan Rupert. And while you do that, I'll ask both Kate and Fuff and Schalk if we can find him. I think he's gone off to phone his mum to tell him he's talking. Tell her he's talking to Michael Johnson. Kate, if you want to pour some of the Grenache, and I'm very impressed because we made you try and pronounce this earlier. It's got a very Afrikaans name. Can you give that a go, Kate? The name of that Grenache?
She's amazing with it.
I think we've lost your audio there for a second. But no, Fuff, warm welcome to you. And it's lovely to have you on board, not just as a great athlete and a great cricketer, but also as a real wine man, because this 100 Thunder is actually a Fuff du Plessis label.
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys, Dan. I would love for Michael to try and pronounce it because I find American accents is the best accents on the planet. So that's a great way to start us off.
Hundertand.
Yeah, it sounds like a Game of Thrones actor, Hunterland. Kate got it very well. It's an Afrikaans, so she's got a Dutch context there. So how we pronounce it is Hundertande. So it's Afrikaans and Dutch are very similar, Michael. So that's why it's a lot easier for her. And it's almost impossible for English or American or Australians to try and pronounce Afrikaans words.
Tell us a little bit about your wine journey. We know your cricket journey extremely well. Captain of South Africa, star player in the IPL in India, this remarkable career. But there's also just a real passion for wine. It's not a case of just simply popping your name on a label. You're really, really involved in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to Michael. It started with just enjoying wine initially, sharing it with mates, a bottle of red from different parts of the world, and then moving down to Cape Town, where Cape Town is, we've got such beautiful wine countries here. So then started drinking a lot more red, and then moving on to sitting in a tournament in India and thinking about how we miss great red wine, and that's how our brand started. We a couple of mates getting together and thinking of a name, and 6-7 years later we've got a few reds in the tank. So it's a nice organic journey that's unfolded for us.
It's been a terrific journey. It's also a terrific wine that you've given us here. This Grenache, for those of you who are wondering, it's a very young wine. It's only a 2019, but the nature of Grenache,
it's very
light wine, very soft, lots of very gentle red fruit to it. The term is either easy drinking or slightly dangerous drinking, because it does tend to go down pretty well. Kate, I can see a smile on face. You have the opportunity to try this Grenache. What sort of style of wine do you like? What's your go-to wine at home?
I like a real full-bodied, deep red. I love cheese, and I think that just goes perfectly well with cheese. Like almost getting towards a port, like a real thick, deep red. That's my go-to, definitely.
Okay, so this is the opposite of that.
It is indeed, but we do have a counterpoint, and this is where you make me feel very, very guilty, Kate, because my attempts to get you the next wine were slightly delayed, so it's only arriving next week, but you do have that to look forward to, and that is a Cabernet Franc. Just before I get it poured, for those of you, Michael, Fuff, Schalk, if you want to pour yourself a glass of the Cab Franc, which we'll move on to a second. A question from someone on the floor asking about snacks, food to go with this wine. The red wines, great winter wines, always a nice big piece of meat or a good stew works well. That's Chenin Blanc, which is South Africa's most produced grape. This one there, which we tried just a few moments ago, that Chenin Blanc from an old bush vine, really good with food with a little bit of spice, cuts beautifully through a curry. But all of them, in the words of the great wine drinker Kate Richardson-Walsh, go very well with cheese. So it's a great space. Cheese and wine is very difficult to beat. The wine we move on to, Michael, this is another one I picked specially for you because this is wine from a good mutual friend of ours, Johan Rupert, who kicked off Laureus, and we both spent a lot of time with, and this is his estate. But I've also picked this because in 2019, this was my red wine of the year on Dan Really Likes Wine. Cabernet Franc is a grape that here in South Africa, for a long time, we tended to have just as a blend. It formed a bit part, playing quietly in the background. And we've really, over the last little while, realized just what an amazing grape it is in its own right. And it creates such a rich and luscious and textured red wine. So I'll allow you to have a sip of it. I think Kate's still working through a Grenache. But Faf, Schalk, Michael. Michael, what do you make of this, the Cabernet Franc?
Yeah, I like it a lot actually, and I used to not be a big Cab Franc drinker. I love Cabernets. I love the big, bold, smoky tobacco. I love that. But in the last couple of years, I've gotten into a bit of the Cab Franc, and here as well. It's been a grape that a lot of producers usually use as a blend. But I think lately in the last few years, Cab Francs have become much more popular. I think a lot of the Pinot crowd, Pinots became really, really popular here since the movie Sideways, 15 years ago or so. But Cab Francs have become more popular, and I've started to embrace them as well. This is a really good one. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm.
Sideways did wonders for Pinot Noir, did absolutely nothing for Merlot, which is still trying to find its way back as a result. Cabernet Franc really growing. Schalk, you've got access to great wine. You now live in Stellenbosch, one of the world's great wine capitals. What do the Brits family tend to drink at home? What's the wine that holds pride of place in your cellar?
Well, I actually started with Pinotage. Like, it was easy accessible in Stellenbosch, and we started with the Beyerskloof Pinotage that was quite freely available. And then now that your palate develops a little bit more, this is if I take everything that I've tasted so far, this is by far the wine that I like the most. It's winter, it's a bit more body to it. I mean, Faf's wine is a bit more summery, a bit lighter, but I don't know wine like the others do. I just like the taste of wine, and this one I particularly like tonight with my fire. I don't have a cheese board, but it's good.
Yeah, you're right. No, this one goes really, really good with the cold winter nights.
All right, well, we're definitely going to have to get some of this to you, Kate. It should be arriving next week. It's going to go really well with cheese as well. For me, people often ask me on the wine show, what is your greatest bottle of wine ever? What's the greatest glass you've had? And for me, the best bottle is always placed in context. It's who I drank it with, where I drank it, what I was celebrating. So if you look back on your career, Kate, is there a glass of wine, a bottle of wine that fell into that space where it was drunk in celebration and you remember it as much for the reason why you drank it as for the wine itself?
I mean, if you're celebrating, you're not going to remember it the next day. No, I don't know. I've only literally really got into wine since I've retired. I kind of were pretty good when I was playing, and even though I was getting on in my years. So it's only really been recently. So I think I had a nice bottle of Chateauneuf de Pape. That was really, it was really good. But I love Argentinian wines. We spent a lot of time playing hockey in Argentina. So it's kind of, I'm just exploring and enjoying this new part of retirement, which is great fun.
Was
Katie,
that part of...
making me feel bad because I'm still playing sport and I'm drinking wine.
No need to get too upset, Faf, because it's part of your business. It's what you do. When you look at your career, your travels, was checking out international wine, maybe finding some vineyards on your cricketing travels, something that you look to do?
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love that. We're very fortunate. We go over as a team, so you've always got friends with you that maybe wants to go check out a few vineyards with you. So Australia is obviously a place that's got some really good wines. Unfortunately, we don't play cricket in America, so we haven't had that opportunity. But New Zealand was great for its white wines and its Pinot
Yeah.
Noirs. So yeah, you go out to a wine farm. Like I really love going to Penfolds in Australia there, just tasting all the different wines, beautiful winery, great people. So it's great that you can, like I said, you've got mates with you. So we're lucky. We're not traveling on our own. You go 6 or 7 guys, go check out a wine farm, and then jump on a wine bus or a wine train to go see a few more.
There's a great sense of camaraderie that exists in all sport, but this speaks to it particularly. Michael, if you look back at your time, I think the time I've spent with Faf, with Schalk, good friends of mine, we've spent time over glasses of wine. Were there friendships outside of the track that maybe over a glass of wine or two allowed you to take a rival and help them to become a friend?
My wine journey really started after my career was over, and that's when I started to really. I mean, I drank wine before during my career, but not as much. I wasn't really into wine as much as I ultimately came to be after my career was over. But just thinking about, to your point, Dan, of it's the atmosphere, it's the people you're with, when you think about, glasses of wine you've had or shared. And I've been fortunate to visit, in places all over the world with my wife, with friends, and wine is always a part of it, always sharing a bottle of wine with friends, all over the globe. And that's been amazing. And and hopefully many more years. And wine does that like no other spirit. You don't share a bottle of vodka. Don't do that. Right? You share a bottle of wine. You kind of can share a beer. with a friend from time to time, but you're not sharing the same bottle of beer. Hopefully not, anyway, especially with COVID. But maybe you share a bottle of wine, though, and it's amazing.
I think the rugby player went rather quiet about sharing a bottle of vodka, so we won't take that conversation any further.
I tried, but it wasn't quite the same experience. I don't remember much of that experience. You don't share a bottle of vodka.
Michael, I'm going to leave you to sip on that Cab Franc a while longer. But Kate, if I can ask you to pour yourself some of the first 11, because this again is just going to reinforce why you don't like Faf du Plessis. Because if you thought his Grenache was a light, delicate, pretty, and well-groomed wine, much like Faf himself, then I'm afraid this is probably going to take it one step further. But I love bringing this wine into the equation, because much as Chenin Blanc for me is the white wine that is really putting South Africa on the map around the world, so Cinsault, which this is doing the same at the moment for our South African wine. It's incredibly light, it's incredibly gentle, it doesn't have those big Schalk Brits shoulders of a Bordeaux blend, but I find it's a really accessible and quite a fun wine to drink. What do you think of it?
Yeah, tasty. I like you said, it's a bit too drinkable. I think that could get you in a bit of trouble.
Oh, no, it's really good. And this, if you look closely at the label, for those of you out there who are cricket fans, so I know Michael Johnson never misses a game of cricket on TV. You'll see some Some names there. You've got Faf du Plessis, you've got AB de Villiers on there as well. And there's quite a cricketing story this. Faf, this is your other label. And for me, this is a great example of athletes finding a passion to translate into life after sport. You're still playing cricket, but coming towards the end of the career, probably only another 15, 20 years to go. You found this wine space, and the first 11, along with the Kleine Wijn Co-op, which is your other label, it's given you something to look at once the pads are finally put away and the bat's down for the last time.
Yeah, to give it some context for Michael, the first 11 in cricketing terms would be your 11 guys that plays in a cricket team. So that's why it's your, like a first team at a school would be your best players. So that's where the name comes from. This is how it started. This was the name that we thought about in India, sitting in a place where it's a dry city where you're not allowed to have any alcohol, but we've smuggled a couple of bottles of wine into the city to make sure that we can keep ourselves busy. And we were like, what would you call your own label? That conversation that we've all had, like, what wine would you make? What would you do? So that's how it started a couple of years ago. And initially it started with a New Zealander, Australian, a South African, or two South Africans. And it's a great story, a wine story, but it's always about drinking it together. That's the main thing.
It's so much fun. And what I love about this, and I think all of you guys will have had the same opportunities. Will you be part of our brand? Will you represent it? And it's very easy. You've all got extraordinary sporting careers to simply stick your name against a brand, pose for a few photos, and bang, you're sitting on supermarket shelves the next week, but you've got no real connection with it. Whereas Faf, this is something you're integrally part of, and I love that about that connection, and it's a really special extension of what you're doing. We have one final wine in this blitzkrieg session of wine tasting that we're doing at the moment, and it's one we'll wrap up with. So I'll ask all of you to pour a little of the Villa Fonte Series M as our final wine for this evening. And this is a wine that comes with quite a backstory. This is a good mate of mine, a guy called Mike Ratcliffe. And just for people a little concerned about Kate Richardson-Walsh disappearing from time to time, she switches off her camera when she finishes the bottle of wine, then puts it aside, and then comes back to join us. So that's why we're losing her. It's a wine that takes what you would have tasted at the very start, that seriously old dirt. So if you've still got a glass, maybe have a sip just in preparation. And then see this is wine going to the next level. By South African standards, this is very expensive wine. Once you translate into dollars and pounds, it's giveaway stuff because our currency is not so strong. But it's a beautiful expression, albeit at a very young stage of wine. This is got a Malbec Merlot lead to it. It's got a wonderful smoothness to it, a wonderful richness to it. And it's a wine that can age quite comfortably for another 15, 20 years. And as it ages, just become a more expressive wine as a result. But I think even now, particularly Kate, for you, knowing the kind of wine that you've said you've liked, I think this is one that you'll like now and will like even more as it gets a bit older. Yeah,
I do love a Malbec. I've drunk probably more Argentinian Malbecs, but yeah, this has definitely got that vibe, which I really, really like. It's good.
So at the moment, we've got one out of... Yes, Schalk.
Got a quick
question at the back.
So you guys are the experts, and I'm definitely not. But I like wine, of course. How do you know how long you wait before you drink a bottle like this? When does it mature? Sometimes I see people in Stellenbosch, because it's so hot, put actually ice in their red wine. So the two questions: how do you actually, because it's not chilled, how do you know, firstly, when it's mature is the right time to drink it, or is it different from cultivar to cultivar?
Yeah, it does. First up, question of people who put ice in red wine. Those are not your friends, Schalk. Unfriend them from Facebook and never speak to them ever again. Those are bad people, Schalk. Those are bad people.
Yes.
Look, we've had a couple of red wines today that I personally don't put ice into wine, but the mantra of Dan Really Likes Wine as a show, as a business, is a wine you like is a good wine and a wine you don't is a bad wine. So if adding ice to wine gives you a better drinking experience, it's absolutely fine. I just won't like you very much. But you've got wine that the two wines from Pfaff, for instance, you pop in the fridge for half an hour in summer. They're those light style of reds, and they can really benefit from being just a little cooler, whereas something like this Villafonte is going to be a little bit bigger. It's a little broader, slightly warmer. It's going to bring more out of that particular wine. In terms of the aging, it's a little bit hit and miss. There are some wines that are made to be drunk immediately. Kate's been mentioning some of the wines from Argentina. Malbecs come in two styles. There's the more elegant style that lasts longer, and then what they refer to as a fruit bomb, which you drink pretty quickly because it's made to be drunk instantly. It's big and fruity and ripe and ready to go. Probably the best way, if you can afford to do so, and if you've got a storage space, is to buy a case of wine, speak to the winemaker, speak to the wine estate, and if they suggest, from 5 to 8 years, it's going to be great, try a bottle after 5 years, see what it's like. If you think it can go a little longer, try another bottle a year later. The challenge is, of course, restricting yourself from drinking all that wine immediately, which is not always an easy thing to do. But it's also, it's personal. And for me, what I love about wine is that it's just such a sense of adventure. Every bottle's got a different story to tell, and everything you drink is going to help your wine knowledge one way or another. And I'll give you a great quote from your namesake, Schalk Brits, Mr. Schalk Burger, who spoke about keeping wine for too long. A full bottle of wine has no story to tell, but an empty bottle of wine, you know when you drank it, you know why you drank it, and it really does have a terrific, terrific story. I am getting a nudge from Beyond Sports Global Head of Wine and Fine Dining, Lex Charlotte, to draw to an end. So I'm going to ask just very quickly from all of you. I have a great bottle of wine. It's possibly the greatest bottle of wine I've ever had, and I'd like to share it with each of you on an occasion. Now, we can think immediately. Schalk, it's the Rugby World Cup final. Kate, it's winning that Olympic gold medal. Michael, I give up because there are just too many to think of. Pfaff, it's that incredible innings in Adelaide where you bored the Australians to death. Starting with you, Kate, if you had to pick not necessarily that Olympic final, but a particular game, a match, a moment in your career that meant so much to you for reasons people might never have known, that you'd like to share that bottle of wine with me for, what would that game be?
I think it would be Commonwealth Games in Manchester 2002. It's my hometown, so I'm a Mancunian, and it was just pouring down with rain. And we had to play Australia in the semi-final, and Australia just dominated world hockey at that time. They won the gold medal in the Sydney Olympic Games, and we played them in the semi-final, and nobody gave us a chance. And I scored. I didn't score many goals in my career, but I scored, and I set up another one. And I would definitely want to be drinking a bottle of wine and watching that back again for sure.
Well, cheers to that. It's a great memory and well worth the bottle. Pfaff, so many great cricket memories. What's the one we might not think of that would merit that very special bottle of wine?
Any innings against Australia that the team's won is always a very good memory for me. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing well against them. So I think my top 5 best memories in cricket was all against Australia. So there's something there. I played a first pink ball test in Adelaide, which going through a bit of a tough week with, you remember Mintgate, Dan?
I do indeed.
Yeah, so it's a tough week.
Well, we
and
all
going
can.
To score 100 was like 50,000 fans booing me. That was the highlight, one of the best moments of my career.
All right. Well, that's worth a great bottle of.
Right now. Googling that to see what that's about. I'm intrigued.
You want to see 50,000 people booing someone?
I'll WhatsApp you the details, Michael. Check your phone shortly. Schalk, the rugby career was an astonishing career. You retired 17 times by my recollection, and then came out of each of them and finished off with the Rugby World Cup last year. I'm still expecting you to play again at the next Rugby World Cup. The World Cup final last year is obviously the big one, but is there another moment, some really special occasion that would merit that exceptional bottle of wine?
Oh, actually, meeting Michael. That was pretty much the highlight of my career. but except that, I would say our first Premiership win and our first European win at Saracens was pretty special. Quite a tight group of guys trying to change the way they treat people, and for me, it was amazing. I mean, it's as a South African going over to the UK, being embraced and being loved in a different culture was for me phenomenal.
And Michael, we'll leave it to you as Schalk gazes on, love struck with the largest virtual man crush we've had in the history of the internet. It's so many to choose from. What would be the one that merits that extra special bottle of wine?
I'm disappointed that I have to follow that up. You know, that's a tough act to follow with Schalk. Yeah, you know, I think you know, you mentioned, you know, something that people probably wouldn't think of, and for me, then it would be my 2000 Olympic gold medal in the 400 meters. That was my last season before retiring. I'd already announced that I was going to retire after 2000, and I'd gotten injured 6 weeks before the games, so 2 months before the games, and wasn't able to run in any, you know, lead up races to prepare as I normally would, to sort of work on the race, work on the strategy leading up to the games. Wasn't able to do that. I was rehabbing the whole time, trying to maintain my conditioning, and what was at stake was finishing my career with all gold medals, with no silver, no bronze, and repeating as Olympic champion and becoming the first person to do so in the 400 meters. And so I wasn't in the best of shape, but I was able to win and finish my career with a clean card of all gold medals and make history. And it took everything that I had learned, you know, over those last, you know, 15 years of my career, you know, to pull out that victory. And so that's a special one. Every victory is special for its own particular reason, but that one is special because that was a tough one.
I just want to know, where's your gold spikes? The gold spikes that made such an impact. Where's those gold spikes?
There's one right there.
You see it? I mean, here I go. I'm Googling those gold spikes. I want to see them.
So, Michael, I know Schalk well. I just bump up the security at your house in Malibu a little. Maybe a Springbok hooker peering over the fence.
We're gonna get our own YouTube channel. You and me, Schalk. We'll get our own channel so I can just listen to, you know, him talk about me. You know, just saying. I mean, I'll watch that all day long myself. I may be the only person tuned in, but I'll be watching.
I'll watch as well.
Oh dear, guys, that's a fabulous note on which to sadly finish, because I could do this for hours. It's so much fun hanging out with you and with some fantastic wine. It's been a really special week for Beyond Sport. There have been a lot of very serious and very important issues that have been dealt with. This has added perhaps just a little levity to it, but I think it's also an important part, because although we're drinking wine, we're also sharing in the camaraderie that is so fundamental to the sporting careers that you guys have enjoyed and the sport that people like myself have watched so admiringly for so many years. So thank you to all of you. Faf, best of luck with the wine business. And I know it's something that you are so passionate about, and we've shared many long conversations. In fact, when Faf phones me about wine, I just put him on speaker and go and do the gardening for an hour or two. He loves his wine, and it's a great story. Thank you as well. My biggest claim to fame is being the captain of the mighty Dodos hockey team. So I feel we have a real kindred spirit as hockey players. Schalk, great friend for many, many, many years. And Michael, just a hero to all of us. So thank you to all of you for sharing some wine, for sharing some time with Beyond Sport and the Beyond Sport Workshop Week. And thank you for all you've done in inspiring so many of us in so many different ways. So cheers. A big thank you to all of you. Enjoy your wine, and a big thank you in closing to the team from Villafonte, the team from Antonio Rupert, Rupert Wines and the team from the First 11 and the Kleine Cup, owned by wine impresario Faf du Plessis, making a big impact around the world. Enjoy the rest of it. To Lex and Georgie and Fred and Nick and the team Beyond Sport. Enjoy the rest of the week. Happy drinking from South Africa. Good night.
Cheers.
Love you, Michael.
Oh my goodness. You guys have seen me all week and I don't think I've ever been so out of words. Wow, what a session. I'm not even going to try to put in words what that was, but watching Schalk and MJ, I mean, sometimes they say don't meet your heroes, but when your hero is MJ and you're having wine with him, you should definitely meet him. So listen, I'm just here to tell you what's coming up next, to let you know that the final session today is a little earlier than it has been all week, so that those of you who are on the same time zone as me can get to bed a little earlier. And quite frankly, watching the chat channel, I think if we don't come back soon, I might lose some of you. So you do not want to miss what is coming up. We have a fantastic conversation from our social impact track to tackle the challenge we all have ahead of us in keeping gender equality on the agenda at this time of flux. And we will be closing out workshop week with athlete, activist and all-round legend Billie Jean King. You have 30 minutes to get some more networking in. Hit the tab on the left-hand side that says networking, chat to people, connect to people. Your tongues might be a little looser now. You might ask that question you were too shy to ask before. I will see you in 30 minutes. Dan, MJ, Schalk, Faf and Kate, thank you so much.